Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Science and Wisdom of Emotion Summit. My name is Kaylee Isaacs. I'm the founder of the Awake Network, and it's my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this summit, which is produced in partnership with the Mind and Life Institute. Now, over 88,000 of us from over 140 countries around the world are gathering to explore the science and wisdom of emotions. If you're joining us now or watching the recording later, please take a moment to say hello in the comment section below. Either below the video or wherever you're tuning in from, and let us know where you're joining us from so we get a sense of this global community. Today, we're delighted to be kicking off the summit with a live opening welcome session with host Ekman, followed by a brief recorded message by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, sharing remarks as we formally begin this gathering together. After this welcome session, which will be about 25 to 30 minutes, you're welcome to access all of the Day 1 Summit sessions on the Summit homepage. And thank you all to the folks who've been writing in about subtitles and translation. I wanted to mention that we now have subtitles and translation into 6 languages available for almost all of the pre-recorded videos, and soon to be all of them. And for the live sessions, we'll have subtitles and translations available for the recordings within 24 hours, but not for the live sessions themselves, unfortunately. So thank you for your patience. And as we begin this summit, I just want to take a moment to thank all of the hosts and presenters who have poured their hearts into sharing this work and teachings with all of us. And I also wanted to express my gratitude for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Mind and Life Institute for their visionary collaboration over the last 30 years. Which has not only catalyzed the field of contemplative science, transforming our understanding of the mind and emotions, and paving the way for evidence-based practices to bring more compassion into our society, but is also the reason why we're gathered here today to benefit from this rich gathering of wisdom. So now it's my honor to welcome the President of Mind and Life Institute, Susan Bauer-Wu, to share a few words with us as we begin. Susan, thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. Hello, everyone. All of us at the Mind and Life Institute offer a warm welcome to each of you joining from around the globe. We are thrilled with the outpouring of interest in this summit. It's amazing, 88,000 of you from 6 continents. The interest in both the wisdom and science of emotion speaks to a yearning in the human heart for greater peace within and for tools to nurture positive relationships in our lives and in the world. The summit represents a true milestone for Mind and Life. And 2 decades ago, at the 8th Mind and Life Dialogue with the Dalai Lama, we brought together leading scientists, many of whom are joining us for this summit. And they explored the impact of destructive emotions on individuals and societies. And that historical dialogue inspired pioneering research into mental training, such as mindfulness, meditation, and how to cultivate positive emotions, such as compassion, love, gratitude, awe, and forgiveness. And we know that we're here to celebrate the tremendous strides that have been made since that dialogue, and how this rich body of knowledge is being applied into our everyday lives. While we now face unprecedented challenges, there are tools that each of us has at our disposal to more skillfully cope with the times. At times, as it turns out, by better navigating our emotions, we can have a positive influence on others and those around us. So over the course of the summit, we will learn together to foster peace within and to create a kinder, more compassionate world for all. I'd like to take a moment to thank our friends at the Awake Network for their partnership in orchestrating this event across multiple time zones and languages, and ensuring that a truly global audience was aware of this free and accessible opportunity. And I'd also like to thank our planning team, Ekman, Richie Davidson, and Dan Goldman, and the more than 30 amazing presenters, including His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for their time and expertise. This is a very rich 4-day program, and we are truly blessed to benefit from their collective wisdom. And lastly, I'd like to introduce and express gratitude to Eve Ekman, whose vision and dedication made this event a reality. Eve was 20 years old when she attended the Mind and Life Destructive Emotions Dialogue. And for her, it was a life-changing experience that shifted the direction of her career path and has informed how she lives today. So thank you, Eve. And please know how we are grateful to you and for your guiding hand in this very special program. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And welcome, welcome, welcome to the first day of the summit. I am honored and beyond excited to be your host today. I also want to extend my thanks. Really, we are here by so much generosity and so much kind intention. Of course, the planning committee, including Mind and Life and our friends at the Awake Network Foundation. Richie Davidson and Danny Goleman, who've been guides and mentors to me for many, many years, and who were instrumental at that dialogue 20 years ago. And I'm here today representing Eve Ekman, of course, but also my dad, pioneering researcher, Paul Ekman. He was a key aspect and member of that dialogue as well. I have a deep appreciation for my dad. He has had faith in my abilities long before I did. I never wanted to be in his shadow or falling under his footsteps, but he lifted me onto his shoulders, included bringing me to that event, which, just as Susan mentioned, would change my life forever. I think it's important for us as we endeavor to begin this journey over the next 4 days to set intention. His Holiness the Dalai Lama would remind us that setting a clear intention is the essential aspect of any activity, large or small. Our intention, the planning committee's intention for each and every one of you, is very clear and very specific. We would love for you to develop a genuine curiosity and care about your emotions, to discover or rediscover the causes and conditions that lead to true, genuine happiness, to experience the interconnection which our universal, shared experience of emotions reveals to us so clearly. And in fact, it's this interconnection that invites us to the most courageous aspiration, that of global compassion. We know more than ever that our well-being is inextricably tied to all living beings. And what we need to do to embrace global compassion is break down all the barriers between who we decide is within our sphere of concern, those we already know and care about, and the rest of all beings. Of course, this is enormous and should sound challenging and hard, but this is what is needed for us to address inequalities, polarization, and destruction of the environment on our planet. It may feel overwhelming. However, there are very many tools. There is actually no alternative to caring about others. If we try or even attempt to deny and avoid our care, our concern, our natural altruism, we actually know from the science that that suppression and that denial takes a tax on us, on our bodies. We are physiologically more depleted when we are trying to avoid, when we are trying to not feel that intrinsic care and concern. But see for yourself. Don't take my word for it. We'll give you many opportunities here to explore the possibilities of compassion and that we can feel genuinely happy as a result of that. The way we do so is beginning with emotional awareness, investigating from the inside out how to meet and host some of the challenging emotions that are required for global compassion. That might be despair, anxiety, that might be even frustration that things aren't moving quicker. So these are our intentions for why we want to be here with you all. Let's take a moment and offer you the time to consider yours. Maybe considering your intentions personally, why you want to show up here, how do you want to cultivate well-being in your own life? but also taking a moment to consider the intentions and motivations for our collective well-being. So to begin, let's consider the essential role of awareness. With awareness, we combine it with compassion. And in doing so, I'd like to recognize that the land where I'm sitting here in this moment in the beautiful Bay Area is an unceded ancestral homeland of the Ohlone and Miwok, the Yokuts and Patwin people. These indigenous communities have lived and moved through this land for over hundreds of generations, and indigenous peoples from many nations make their home in this region today. Bringing awareness to historical and contemporary injustice is the very work of compassion and action. So as we shift into exploring our journey of emotion awareness, we can really just look to this last year. It's been such a powerful time. We've all been doing our first person me search of difficult emotions, whether that's isolation, fear, and loneliness, moral outrage at racial injustice, or the inequalities in access to healthcare. The pandemic has revealed so many challenges and difficulties. There has never been more evidence of our natural predisposition to compassion and altruism than right now. The science shows it to us, and yet we look around and we don't see this reflected in the world. Why? Why aren't we living in the world that is reflective of our compassion that's so innate and intrinsic? Well, Danny Goleman might tell us that that's because we get hijacked by our difficult and disturbing emotions. Or Richie might remind us that we actually just need to engage and use the neuroplasticity we have of learning new responses. My dad would probably say that we can learn about our emotions and choose to respond instead of react. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama would invite us to develop tools and skills to find our way back to a calm mind over and over and over, and maybe even apply some insight and unpack some of the ways that our emotions can distort the very way that we see and interact with the world. So let's dig in just a bit here on the definition of emotions from a modern psychological and Buddhist psychological perspective. Emotions are the very spark of our life. They are the forces within the mind, the body, and the heart that motivate us, that frustrate us, that inspire us, that connect us. And we don't need to know anything about neuroscience or meditation to know that emotions are important in our everyday life. Without it, there would be no survival. And yet, they are so complex. There's a phrase my dad loves to use when we talk about why to develop emotion awareness. He says, let's try to reduce our regrettable emotional episodes. I think all of us have a pretty good sense of what that's like when we inadvertently say something too harshly to someone we care about, or we spend hours, maybe days, caught up in anxiety about something that really isn't a big deal. So when we think about emotions, one thing we can really connect with is that they are universal. All of us want to feel good. All of us would like to avoid feeling bad. This is agreed upon by both Buddhist and modern psychology. However, there are fundamental differences as well. One of the primary differences that we find is in Buddhism, emotions are mental states that influence how we see and respond to the world. There isn't a specific word for emotion in the same way there is in modern contemporary psychology. When this Buddhist approach to emotion is being described, we can see that there are these ongoing habits or perspectives. Some of you are very familiar with these ideas of afflictive emotions. These are, for example, attachment, clinging, or aversion and hatred. So with this idea of attachment, it fundamentally disturbs the peace of our mind and distorts reality. When we feel attachment to someone, maybe we idealize and imagine, oh, I really want that person. And in fact, I can just tell that person is ideal. They have that which will make me happy. And there's nothing about them that's wrong. This is our infatuation stage that I would say all of us are familiar with. And one thing about this is not only does it create a state of probably frenzy and overexcitation in ourselves, if we end up achieving our goal, meeting this person and becoming close to them, we actually might feel disappointed. Nobody can live up to an ideal that our attachment will create. And it also distorts our ability to feel like we know where happiness is. We end up deciding or believing that happiness is outside of us. In psychology, we call this hedonic treadmill. We place our idea of what will make us happy outside of us, and once we achieve it, we look for the next thing over and over and over. We can look at the very opposite with hatred. We might think one person is terrible and everything they do is wrong. And in that way, we think that without them, we would find happiness. So this is the Buddhist approach to how we understand emotions. In the modern psychological approach, we're measuring something much smaller. We're actually looking at the brief experience of emotion at the physiological level. This is a 25th of a second. And our emotions happen outside of our conscious awareness. That's something that's so important to keep in mind. If we had time to think about our emotions, they maybe wouldn't cause us so much trouble. They are automatic. Our emotions are influenced by our lived past, our history, our scripts, what happened before us. That influences, and again, that same word maybe distorts what we see right now. In the psychology definition of emotion in modern context, there's been an emphasis on positive and negative. Positive emotions feel good. Negative emotions feel bad. However, when we blend the contemplative and the modern psychological, we have such a rich definition, and we can understand that a constructive emotion can feel bad. For example, anger, which definitely disturbs the mind, but when it's felt in response to injustice, can be enormously constructive, motivating us to create change. And maybe we have an enjoyable emotion, feeling quite happy when someone we dislike meets with failure or loss. And yet, if our aspiration is that global compassion, even that good feeling emotion is destructive because we're wishing harm for another, or at least enjoying the harm that they are experiencing. So in both cases, what we see is part of the way we develop our emotional awareness is to actually see reality as it is. I put that in quotes. That's something His Holiness the Dalai Lama and many other Buddhist scholars invite us to do. And the way we do this from the Buddhist approach, there's many, but we are learning to train the mind and the heart so that we can pay close attention to our thoughts and our experiences. We can have insight into the very nature of what makes us emotional. And we can also cultivate these positive, wholesome mental states, such as compassion and loving kindness and empathetic joy. In modern psychology, we can kind of bolster or also add in other aspects, including recognizing the signals of emotion, facial expression, vocal tone. And we can learn a granularity, naming specifically what our emotions are, so we have a fluency in our communication. According to Buddhism, there are 84,000 destructive emotions. It's quite a lot to take in. Happily, there are also 84,000 antidotes. Some of the ways we can start to learn about our emotions are quite simple. We pay attention to our day-to-day experience. I was very fortunate to be part of a project His Holiness the Dalai Lama funded called the Atlas of Emotion. And admittedly, we don't get to 84,000. We actually just look at 5 primary emotions and help develop this kind of language or fluency of looking at a whole range of our fear states, from anxiety all the way to panic, what it feels like and how we respond. Being able to slow down and look at these momentary experiences of emotion really helps us unpack and understand these overarching patterns or habits of the mind. Importantly, both wisdom traditions highlight that we are not our destructive emotions. 20 years ago at that meeting in Dharamsala, Mathieu Ricard shared something that has stayed with me ever since. He said that the destructive emotions, they're like dust on the gold of our true nature, and that there's this innate, intrinsic goodness That struck me so deeply. This idea that, yeah, maybe I feel and act in a way that is temporarily harmful or regrettable, but that's not who I am. And that's not who others are. That's almost a foundation for the compassionate view and lens we want to bring to the world. And something now we see established in modern psychology. We can see by the behavior of toddlers that this intrinsic nature of empathy and compassion is always there from the earliest phase of our life. His Holiness the Dalai Lama was insistent that we create secular trainings to share this wisdom with the world. This is for adults and for children so that we can have emotion awareness and cultivate compassion. Many programs have emerged from the beginning of that meeting 20 years ago. One is Cultivating Emotional Balance. That was co-created by my dad and Alan Wallace and many collaborators at UCSF. And I've been fortunate to teach for these last 11 years. Also, Thupten Jimpa, who is presenting at this conference, he is part of the compassion cultivation training, really focusing on those core skills. We see the continuation of the amazing work of Mark Greenberg, also in this conference, who has social emotional learning programs directly into the schools. And Richie Davidson's programs at the Center for Healthy Minds, looking at the core pillars of our well-being and the science-backed activities to make them possible. Over the next 4 days, you'll hear about the science and practices that have emerged over these last 20 years. So today, day one of our emotion awareness journey, you will hear from a panel that includes Mathieu Ricard, Lonnie Shioda, and Dacher Keltner. They'll be talking about the fundamentals of emotion, altruism, and basic goodness. Alan Wallace will share about the cultivation of mental balance and how we use first-person introspection, a way of identifying the causes and conditions in ourselves to achieve that mental balance. Resma Menakem will share and address how destructive emotions live in the body and give us an opportunity for how we can overcome racism through somatic abolitionism. Artist Ana Teresa Fernandez tells us about her practice and how she invites us through the creation of awe to develop empathy and social change. Christian Howard leads us through a practice of being able to see reality as it is, to kind of unhook from all the identities that we carry while still valuing what identities mean in the world and how it creates a uniqueness of embodiments and voices. And there's a panel with my dad in which we talk about the fundamentals of why emotion matter and share quite a lot of laughter. On day 2, Danny Goleman is leading us in a whole day worth of many speakers talking about being intelligent about our emotions, deeply understanding stress as well as happiness, and looking at how social emotional learning impacts schools and educational systems worldwide. On day 3, we have Richie Davidson, who has a series of different panels and different individual interviews and practitioners who take us through his 4 pillars of well-being very clearly. On day 4, we have Wendy Hasenkamp and Shankari Goldstein, stewards of the Mind and Life vision, bringing us into the integration practices. How do we make these everyday experiences of emotion and compassion real, and actually for our collective liberation? 20 years ago, the destructive emotions dialogue has made its way into scholarship, science, and practice. We hope that today this conference can be a force for positive change for 20 years to come. As is always the wish of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, we want to highlight the value of directly applying these ideas into everyday life. We see the direct implications right now of our unaddressed destructive emotions on social, racial, and climate justice. There is so much work to do at the inner level to also heal us at the collective level. As a planning committee, we also see clearly how in the past there's a lack of diverse views and voices in the space of psychological science and contemplative science. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and we're so grateful to the scientists, the trainers, and practitioners deeply invested in diversity and equity who've been involved in this event, and we look forward to the work ahead in this ongoing and unfolding journey. I'm really pleased to announce that Mind and Life and the Awake Network Foundation will be donating a portion of the proceeds from this summit to the preservation of Tibetan culture. This effort is in accordance with right reciprocity, honoring the traditions where the science and practices have been drawn. So we'll be working with the Pundarika nuns. This is an effort led by Sokni Rinpoche, where nuns get to do long-term retreat and really deepen their own practice to bring forward to generations. And the Tibetan Children's Village, which has invested for decades and decades in preserving Tibetan culture for coming generations. I am here with the wise ones, the elders who've opened the door for me. I grew up with this field and my own work, and many of those of my generation that were able to do, bringing these ideas of meditation, emotion awareness, and compassion into hospitals and jails and schools, technology sectors, and beyond. This is really all coming out largely from this dialogue and the science that spawned it. My gratitude and appreciation is truly unbounded. And to share this with each of you is a dream come true. My hope is that these days can be transformative. We can all learn more about addressing our destructive emotions and cultivating our constructive emotions for the sake of all beings. Now I have the honor of introducing the pre-recorded opening remarks of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, a wonderful teacher. And he teaches us not only through his direct and clear understanding of what compassion means for all of us, but also his embodiment, his joy, his clarity. What you'll be seeing is a 4-minute excerpt of what you will have on the last day. Day 4 will include the entire keynote. I'll tell you that it was unbelievably moving to watch that keynote when we pre-recorded it. And I know that all of you will gain a great deal from it. So many small insights and ideas. I hope to come back to it over and over. His laughter, his presence, it really embodies a lot of the values many of us are talking about. So let's go ahead and watch His Holiness opening remarks now.
Happiness, very much so related with our emotion, part of emotion. So the emotion, there are many causes. Although environment, external things also affect, but mainly our own mental state. Mental state, calm, peace, the surrounding difficult sort of situation doesn't matter, not much disturb. So mind is very, very important. And then one good thing is mind can train. Through training, those destructive emotion try to reduce. Constructive emotion can increase. The positive emotion, very much based on reason. Negative emotion, just emotion, no reason. So long run, you see, through training, you see, our mind emotion can change. All those destructive emotion can reduce. Finally, can eliminate the positive emotion, such as the Sanskrit word karuna, compassion. You see, we can develop infinite way. Some scientists say that we are social animal. So any social animal is some kind of, by nature, the society and the group is basis of your own life. So therefore, any social animal, some kind of sense of concern of their own group. So we human being, social animal, obviously from birth, you see, our life entirely depends on mother's affection and family affection. So we all, by nature, since you see our own sort of also the life very much depend on your own group. So you have to take serious concern about the group which your life entirely depend. So looking from that way, we should be more compassionate. Or compassion should not consider something religious thing. This is related with the society, the humanity. So we all have common responsibility to build happy humanity on the basis of consider oneness of 7 billion human beings.
We really look forward so much to a rich 4 days with all of you. Now, all of the day 1 sessions are available on the Summit homepage. We encourage you to leave comments and share your thoughts and learnings and questions. I especially look forward to your questions and really look forward to responding to them. Enjoy. Thank you so much.